Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are watching Well-Rounded Individual. I'm your host, Adam Schindler. If you are watching this right now, please do me a favor. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's how I'm able to grow this show and just continue to bring more valuable content to you. So if you're watching, I appreciate you. Please subscribe. Today, I have another excellent guest for you. He is an old friend of mine. He is a Houston MMA OG, the owner and head coach of War Training Center in Houston, Texas. He is an Iraq war veteran in the Marines. He's a father, a husband, and an all-around badass. Jeremy Mahon, thank you so much for being here.
Man, thank you for having me out here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I appreciate you just making the time to be here. I know you just came in on a flight today, flew into Vegas. You got on the UFC Apex card this weekend. So flew in, got the rental car, and come to meet me and have a conversation.
Yeah, no, man, literally touchdown, went and had some tacos. This little spot I like, Tacos El Gordo.
Oh, I love that place.
And yeah, I came straight over here, dude. It's been, we were just saying, when I saw you on the parking lot, it's been probably 9, almost 10 years since we've seen each other in person. So
yeah, for sure.
We're just really excited to come here and hang out and do this with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And again, like 10 years, it doesn't seem that long because like in the day and age of like social media and like we follow each other and we message each other and stuff like that. So you stay in contact with people and you forget that like, holy shit, it's been a decade.
Time has
since
passed.
like we said what's up in person. So that's awesome, man.
Cool.
You've always been one of my favorite people, so I'm super pumped to have you here.
Man. Yeah, no, likewise.
Cool. So, Well-Rounded Individual, name of the show, and that is something that you embrace and that you are. What are some things, what are some of the most, like I think, important, or what you think are the most important characteristics, or how would you describe what a well-rounded individual is?
I think one of the most important characteristics just of being a good human, right, is discipline. Having discipline in all aspects of your life, that gives you control, right? So if you have discipline and you have control, then you can kind of start gearing yourself towards whatever goals and aspirations you have. And the more of those things that you start putting towards, trying to see success in, that's when you start being well-rounded, right? You start kind of diversifying, I guess, and spreading out and like, okay, I'm doing this and now I've accomplished this goal, then I move on, I start doing something else. And before you know it, you put together a pretty good, resume of things you've done and accomplished. And, when you hear someone like introduce it like you did, you don't ride, drive around, all day thinking about those things in your head about what kind of person you are and what you've accomplished and what you've done. So when you hear it said, man, it's kind of cool, and I think I would say, though, in one word, man, discipline. I think that's the most important thing that we can have.
Yeah, I completely agree as well. Discipline is something that takes you from just levels you up, right? And it can level you up on multiple levels as well. And I mean, speaking of like just a resume, like building that resume, but I mean, you've created quite the resume for yourself, with the gyms that you've owned and operated and all the people that you've coached. And probably one of the biggest things that I notice about you that I think makes you so well-rounded is that not only do you have this list of like accomplishments on your resume, but the way you treat people and the love and like attention that you pour into people who aren't you, right? And how you look to guide and take others to another level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if it's specifically, talking about like the fight game, it's something I've done, you know what I mean? I fought for a number of years. I accomplished a lot of things in fighting. It took me a lot of places. And so I feel like I want to help and give that back to others. And at the same time, man, I still get that rush through them, because I've had those experiences. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel the need to like steal their shine. I can just kind of sit back in the cut in the corner on it and watch them succeed. And I get those same feelings. So that's something that kind of drives me too with people. It's for them, but then selfishly, man, I'm getting something out of it too, because I like the experience. I like being in this environment and doing the whole fight thing. I love it.
It is. It's so much fun. And I haven't been in a corner in a while. I think actually the last time I was in a corner, Corley was out here for some Muay Thai fights.
Wow.
Joseph and a couple other guys were out here, and that was probably like 2016. So I haven't been in the corner for a while, but I still felt that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost more fun because I knew I wasn't going to get hit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's an experience, man. We some of the guys were asking about how many fights I'd cornered, you know, and I started looking back at it, and you know, just adding the years, and it's got to be, you know, you got to have like a rough guesstimate. I don't have like an exact number, but it's probably around like 1,700, you know.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
somewhere between 1,700 and 2,000 fights.
Way over 1,000. Yeah,
that's, you know, it's crazy, you know, and when you've cornered that many, been around that many fights, like it's extremely rare to see something you haven't seen before.
Right.
You know, so you're kind of in there, and everything is almost like an old experience that gets revisited when you're there in the corner. So
yeah, and speaking of like the origin of that, it's funny that we're here together because we were both part of 4 Ounce's first fight. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Naveed versus Adon De La Garza.
Yep.
And I was in Adon's corner. I had only been training for like a year at that point. And so that's so funny that like after all these years, that was 2007 or 2008. And after all these years and 1,700 fights.
You know what's crazy with that too, man? Like looking back, your perspective on things just changes through the years. And, you know, that was an amateur fight, right? I think it was an amateur fight still, right?
It was. Yeah, it was in a ring.
And Naveed was like undefeated at the time. And Adon hit him with the, so this was the one at the Lone Star beatdown, right? This was literally the first one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that was actually Naveed's first fight.
Yeah.
And all he knew at that time was wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, and he was like a state champ, you know, wrestler. And so he just kept repeating the slam.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember because we didn't know each other at the time, but like I remember leaving that fight and being like, man, those guys were so cool because it was at Hurricane Harry's. It was in a ring. And it was so funny. Like for those that don't know, Hurricane Harry's is like this country bar in College Station, and Lone Star Beatdown is what did become legacy, and UFC matchmaker Mick Maynard started this. So this is 16 years ago at least.
I think this was like 2007.
Yeah, 7-ish.
2007, yeah.
And there are people smoking in the audience and stuff. But I remember Naveed kept taking him down, and Don had him in like a triangle for a whole round. And he just kept slamming.
He knew nothing else, you know. That's what made me think that it was maybe 2 fights later that he fought Domingo Pilarte.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And Domingo's the one put him in an armbar, and Naveed slammed him out of it, or went to slam out of it and broke his arm. Mm-hmm. And the referee, of course, you know, stops the fight. And I was so mad. I'm like, he didn't tap, you know? And like looking back, like, man, this guy was an amateur. He was supposed to go to work on Monday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there mad because the referee stopped the fight when a dude snapped his arm. Like,
yeah. That's so funny because it does. It's like the perspective that you get from an amateur going in, and then to now you've got multiple guys in the UFC on big cards fighting in the UFC this weekend. And just the level of like importance has drastically changed. But the level of importance in your mind at that time, it was everything.
No, and you know the thing was too, at that point, the gym hadn't lost a fight, so it was kind of like, how long can you keep this like undefeated, you know, as a gym thing going? You know, we were like these new guys in town that just kept winning, and so it's like, man, the longer we can do that, the more it'll build the just kind of the aura that we have about us. So yeah, man, I was pissed off, but looking back at that, I'm glad they went ahead and stopped that. I'm sure Naveed's happy with it too. His arm is still messed up.
Yeah, you know what? They were talking about this. I forget who it was. Someone got their arm broken in the UFC, and it was Michael Bisping who was the one who was commentating, and he was like, why would you not tap? Because you're gonna lose either way. You either lose and go home and fight again, or you lose and go home and you're out for 4 months because you have a broken arm.
Yeah.
And that's just the level of knowledge that has changed.
You know, in certain things you can let them go and deal with it later, right? But a broken arm, that's not going to be one of them.
Yeah.
If you got a broken arm, you're pretty much not going to be fighting.
And a lot of times you see that too. People just don't tap. It's crazy. I'm quick tapper.
Man, I'm coming off 3 knee surgeries, and all of them have been from stubbornness.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand.
Yeah, as soon as someone touches my feet in the gym, I'm like, all right.
I mean, I've had the last one was an ACL reconstruction from actually it initially got messed up in a match with Chad Robichaux.
Oh, really?
Right, and then I think another match with Mike Trent revisited the injury, and like a few weeks after it in the gym, it just popped while I was just doing nothing basically. So
it's wild, isn't it? Like sometimes like the re-aggravation can come from literally nothing.
Yeah. So
knees are the worst.
It's part of it, I guess it just comes with what we choose to do. So
yeah, and I mean, there's nothing I tell people because like I do like regular guy workouts, so I still train jiu-jitsu every now and again, but like I work really hard, like as far as like fitness racing and stuff like that goes. And I tell people, I'm like, hey, man, like I got like it's a different level of like just like tear on your body.
Yeah.
Because
it's like forceful tear, right? It's like it's not just that you're running and there's just like it's pounding on the pavement.
Hurts a little bit.
People are pulling on it, trying to separate it, trying to rip it. So that's what the moves are designed for. It's like the heel hook that tore the ACL. Like, I mean, that's what the move's designed to do.
Yeah.
So it worked.
Yeah. That's literally what it's made
literally
for.
what it was made for. So I can't be surprised at it when it popped. I couldn't be surprised by that.
That's hilarious. Yeah. And it's funny that we sit and laugh about these type of things. It's like it happens so often. We're just like,
oh man, it's like, till the wheels fall off, you gotta roll with it. I need to get a hip replacement right now.
Damn.
And I'm still trying to figure out, well, how can I run? So I found I can still run maybe one day a week, sometimes twice a week. It's at a really slow pace, but those things just kind of become routine. It's something that you feel like a must do, and it just keeps tearing your body up more and more.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also almost like you need it.
Yeah.
Like I know I need it. If I couldn't run, this is a funny story. On my second ACL surgery, when I tore it the second time. On my recovery, like I had 8 weeks of no contact, no walking. So I would crutch to my apartment gym in Austin and get on the elliptical and do like 45 minutes on the elliptical because I needed dopamine.
Yeah.
That's funny. But let's kind of talk about like your transition and like in discipline, right? And you've created multiple very successful gyms and creating just real solid fight teams as well, like within Houston and nationally and globally. Now you guys are fighting internationally. War Training Center. Talk to me about War Training Center. I love what you're doing there as far as like the hard work, the discipline, and just the way you push your guys. And just talk to me about how you've been able to create that type of success within your building and within your team.
I really put together like 3 elements from my life to kind of make that, right? I kind of took some of the structure and organization, discipline, like of the Marine Corps. I took the camaraderie and just the sense of team, from like playing team sports my whole life, everything from baseball to football to, just a lifetime of playing sports. And then just that grit that we had from 4 ounce from the fight gym, right? And so kind of putting those 3 things together, it really helped to create a system and a culture. And having a complete fighting system, training system in place, and having standards that we hold our fighters to, that kind of created the culture with it too. So the gym itself, man, like our whole motto, outwork everyone, and like that's what we want to do. I mean, we want to. That's how we want to win fights. We want to just outwork you till you quit. A byproduct of that is you get a lot of finishes along the way. If you're trying to win every second of something, there's a good chance you're going to win at one of those seconds.
Right.
And if for whatever reason you don't, and it goes to decision, well, then you should have set yourself up for success to win that decision.
Right.
That doesn't happen all the time, but we keep a pretty good track of our winning percentages and all of our stats every year. And we've been up over 80% since the gym's open, and we've been open since 2017. And that's no easy feat in MMA, especially when you consider as a team we're getting maybe 70 fights a year, and now that we have guys fighting at higher levels, right? It's easier to get those wins when you're just fighting kind of on an amateur show out in the middle of nowhere, and
Right. Yeah.
you're just fighting some guy who's, this is what he does on the weekend.
Yeah.
It's a different story when you're, not just the UFC, but I mean, like Fury has really become like this platform for guys who this is their life. This is just a step, in their careers. And so they've already made the commitment to be full time with it. So when you're fighting those type of people, we fight for, with Fury, with CFFC, XKO, different organizations and these are serious organizations that are putting people into the big shows. And so the fact that we've been able to do that and still maintain a pretty high, winning percentage, I mean, that's one of the things, not just am I proud of, but I think it also, like, you can just look at that and it tells you a lot right there. It tells you about the work ethic. It tells you all those things because you wouldn't have that success without those.
Right. The result definitely tells you what kind of a recipe there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say too, one of the things that's kind of built our success is, you were in Texas for a long time. More often than not in Texas, wrestling is treated like as a stepchild at a gym, right? Mm-hmm. And at war, like wrestling is king. We put wrestling up on top, and our whole system basically is built around our ability to out wrestle you.
Right.
So we're going to push the pace. We're going to out position you the whole fight, and we're just going to be offensive and attack you relentlessly from bell to bell, whether that be 15-minute fight or 25-minute fight. We're coming in, and that's our mentality. Is we're just about to outwork you for, until the referee stops the fight or until it's over.
Right. It's hard to beat a man that'll never stop coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's super cool. And what I heard you say, like within there too, is culture. I love the culture that you put, because it seems like you've built like just like a family there, and that's something that I feel like maybe it was self-inflicted, but as I was training, like I bounced around a lot, and I was a bit of an island, and I feel like that was a detriment to my career. I needed a home and more of like a family type atmosphere. As a 41-year-old, retired has-been, like I can see that easily, but I didn't know it at the time. And having someone that is just like as experienced as you to be able to curate that and promote it and just bring people in and just groom them into the people that they are, it has to be so important for these young guys.
But I agree with that totally. But if you remember back, I didn't know those things either at the time, right? Yeah. We were both you and I both were fighting like in the heights of our careers, like at the same time. Like, you were already fighting in Bellator at the time when I think you were about to get signed with Bellator when you first came and started training with us. Mm-hmm, yeah. You had maybe one or two fights before you signed.
I had one fight in Bellator before I.
Yeah. So like you were already kind of there, and I think I was already fighting with Legacy at that time, and like you just when you're kind of in the mix of it, you don't always notice those things that when you can look at it from a distance later, you can say, well, this is how we can make this better. This is how we can improve upon this. But before we get off the subject of it, one thing I don't know if I had even told you this, but the hardest I've ever been hit in my whole entire life was by you.
Really?
You hit me one time while we were sparring in the boxing ring. And we had on big gloves. I don't remember if we had on headgear. Probably not. If I had to guess looking back. Yeah. But I just remember, man, I bounced off the rope to do something probably flashy-ish. And you hit me with an overhand that I felt like started in the back of my neck and like traveled down my body. And I just kind of slumped down for a few minutes, and then I just remember getting up and was like, wow. I don't think it put me like on the floor, but it was the hardest I've ever been hit. And I don't get hit super hard anymore because I rarely spar even now. So I think you're always going to have that one, man. Hardest I've ever been hit. You cracked me good.
That's a gold star for me. Yeah, that's a gold star for me, man. That's cool to hear, because I forget sometimes that, like, because I've been out of the game for so long, I forget that, like, I can fight sometimes.
Yeah.
Like I know that I can.
Oh man,
but,
you're a tank, dude.
Yeah. I forget sometimes that I can fight. And when I talk to people like, oh, why don't you train and stuff like that? And I'm like, I do, like, and I will, but like, I'm like, I'm not anybody who can beat me up, I'm going to be friends with.
Yeah.
Because they're already my friends.
Yeah.
If I have to fight, I'm going to hurt somebody.
You know, I feel like that. It's like, you know, at home, I'm like, man, if you can beat me up, I already know you.
Yeah.
You know, I already know the guys that can beat me up, and like I'm like, you're not one of them.
Yeah.
You know, or whatnot. But you know, yeah, you know who can do that, and like I said, they're your friends.
Yeah.
They're not going to beat you up. You're not going to get in a fight with them because you guys have that mutual, you know, that mutual respect for what you do.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're going to do it, you'll do it in there for money.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not trying to fight anyone for free.
Same.
Yeah. Anyone.
I'm not trying to fight
free.
anyone. Period.
Yeah.
But
Period. Now.
But if we're doing it, there's going to be a good stack.
Yeah.
For
If it has
you know?
to be, there has to be some like dire result or dire consequences of not doing it, or money on the other end.
One or the other.
And a lot, because I don't want to fight. That's funny. But so let's talk about like just like the fight this weekend a little bit as well. You've got a guy named Reese coming out of Shiner, Texas, that is just, you know, on the way up. And you're telling me off camera about him a little bit, but just tell me about like what you saw in him and just what you're excited about this weekend's fight and just like him in general, like as a student and as a colleague and friend as well.
You know, man, we got Zach. I first saw Zach fight. He was an amateur. I saw him fight in Arkansas. We were going out to Arkansas and fighting during COVID. They were the first state, at least anywhere around, that was putting fights on. So that was our first opportunity to get back in there. And Zach was fighting out there as an amateur, and I saw him fight. I was like, man, this guy's really good, you know. And then my other coach at the gym, Adam, he somehow, you know, maybe talked to him at the fight. I forget exactly how the initial correspondence went. But, you know, then Adam told me, he's like, hey, man, I think Zach guy's going to start coming out and training with us, you know. And then he came out and did another, I believe we had another 1 or 2 amateur fights before he went pro. Everything's finishes, man. He's a finisher. He's a very exciting fighter, you know. Like finishes are exciting in general, but when they're like dramatic finishes, right? Flying jump knees, elbows, like kick, like he's an exciting finisher. Yeah. You know, he's, I think, kind of like the prototype for the 185, you know, body type. He's, you know, almost 6'4", 6'5", you know, walks around probably at 210, you know, just a specimen. Super athletic guy, played baseball his whole life. So that's something else I think now. I'm finding that baseball players have really good like eye-hand coordination and certain fundamentals that baseball players kind of can come in with. You can kind of tweak that for fighting and really help them out.
Right.
So yeah, man, Zach, he's coming off his last fight in the UFC was maybe 2 months ago. So this is a pretty short turnaround. He won that fight very quickly, threw a nasty liver kick, followed it up with an uppercut, you know, sent the dude to the shadow realm, and pretty much expecting the same thing here on Saturday. You know, he's fighting another tough guy, and this guy's going to give Zach the opportunity to land some shots and hit him. And you know, Zach's not the kind of guy that you want to let land shots and hit you. So, you know, expecting more of that. And you know, I tell the guys, if your goal is to be a world champion, then you can't look past anyone, but every fight's a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. You know, I've heard coaches, you know, say don't look at it like, you know, someone's a stepping stone or whatever in your career. But if your goal is to be the best, then that's what everyone is, right? So, like, we're going to get through this guy, and then we're going to start preparing, you know, and getting ready for the next one. But I mean, we're constantly training to fight the best in the world, to fight the champion. Everyone else on the way there is just someone we gotta fight to get there. So
yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't treat it that way, then you're giving it. I mean, obviously you give it respect, but you don't want to ever look back and be like, oh, like, you know, you think it's bigger than it actually is. You know what I mean? Even though it's big, stepping stone is a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it almost takes a little bit of the pressure off, you know, because you see, you're like, well, this isn't. I mean, like you said, you got to win it, but like this isn't the final chapter. This isn't where we're ending up at. So when we look back in it, you know, all these guys that he's fought, they're just going to look back at it like, he's the toughest guy they've ever fought. They're gonna be honored to have,
Yeah.
to be a notch on his belt. So
Yeah. I think about that sometimes. I'm like, oh man, remember when this person fought this person back when they were both nobody? And like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, that's so interesting that like you just see the evolution of like people and fighters and where they came from. Like I think about, do you remember Aaron Suarez? He fought from out of Texas Powerhouse.
okay,
He was a training partner of mine, but he and Dustin Poirier fought on their pro debut.
yeah, that's nuts.
Pro debut.
That's
And
nuts.
he was like an amateur champion and stuff like that. But when him and Dustin fought, Dustin won, obviously. But we all knew Dustin was going to be special, like back in 2009.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I don't know if anyone like saw that, like what he has become.
Man, I remember seeing Dustin. The first time I saw him was at a Legacy weigh-in, and I just was like, I couldn't believe how big he was.
Yeah.
He was probably the biggest 55er at the time I had seen, and they were talking about him going to 45.
Yeah, he did go for a while.
And I was like, man, this guy's a good size.
Yeah.
He was actually, they had talked about, and then they both ended up going to UFC. He was maybe going to fight Pineda at 45 there in Legacy.
Yeah.
And which that was actually, you talk about people's debuts. That was my pro debut. I fought Daniel Pineda.
Yeah, that's crazy. I forgot about that.
And he finished me. And like that was something that really bugged me for a minute. But looking back at the career, this dude's still in the UFC. He's still won every fight of his by finish.
Yeah.
So when you look back at it like that, like, man, this guy's finished like 40-something other people at this point, you know? So like it doesn't sting nearly as bad, you know?
Yeah, that's wild. Like when you think back into like, our Wild West days, like, 'cause I think I started fighting in like 2007, something like that. But 2008, 2009, then I was in Houston in 2010 and 2011. You just see like the crop of people, and we're all almost done. I think Daniel's the last guy still going.
Yeah, no, he's I was thinking about it. He's got to be especially the last one really still doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like at that level. Yeah.
At that level, that's incredible. We fought each other in 2006 as professionals. And so the fact that he's still in the UFC right now fighting, man.
Yeah. He's a couple years younger than us. I think he just turned 30.
I think he's got to be 40. Maybe.
I think his birthday, this is weird that I remember this, but I think his birthday is August 6, 85.
That is weird, you know that.
It's so weird.
But
I'm really good with birthdays,
right,
bro.
though, yeah.
I'm good with birthdays. But I think, maybe I'm wrong, but we'll have to check.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, let's, one of my favorite things that like, within like the culture that you've created and everything that you created, and you've got everyone saying it now, OGD, only good days.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Like, where'd that come from, and how did did you create that, and like where did that originate?
Man, I got like this really like cool way I could tell it about like how this angel came and visited me, and like on the sixth day he gave me this gift and all.
Yeah.
Which is true, but the reality of it though is a friend of mine from the Marines named Angel came down and was visiting for my 40th birthday, and the whole week, man, he's just like, man, you're gonna love this gift. I got you something. You're gonna love what I got you. And so finally, it's like my birthday. I'm like, hey, like, what's up with the gift? And he's like, you ready for it, bro? I'm like, yeah. He's like, only good days. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. Don't you like it? I'm like, well, what is that? He's like, only good days. It's yours. He's like, from now on out, you're only gonna have good days. And I won't say I rid it off, laughed it off, but I didn't embrace it immediately.
Yeah.
And then I got sick with like a mystery veteran Iraqi illness kind of thing that had me like on a deathbed for a little while. I mean, everything from drastic weight drop to like crazy like internal infections going on in my body, almost having to like have my foot amputated over it, a hospital stay. But I just started, when I got released from the hospital, I got sent home, and I'd be at home all day by myself, waiting on the family to get there, waiting on my wife to get out, home from work, waiting for my daughters to get home from school. And they would come, I would just be so excited just to see them, just to have them there. And it would just be a good day. I'm like, man, how could this be a good day? I'm like dying laying here in bed, but I'm just so happy and so excited to see them, And so I really just started like kind of living for the moments and living in the present and appreciating what I have. And since then, that was almost 5 years ago, about a little over 4.5 years ago. And man, I haven't had a bad day since then. I'm sure there's been some bad things have happened in those days, but when I look at the day as a whole, man, there's always something to be grateful for. There's always something to, and so I just started putting it out one day, man. I was like, I'm gonna start putting this on my social media every day. And so I think now for about the past 3 years, every single day, I put something that's a positive statement, whether I come up with it or whether I search and find something and I put it out there. And man, people really do appreciate it. I get tons of messages, not just on public comments, but people DM me and say, like, man, I really need to hear that. Thank you. I appreciate what you do. And so that drives me to, to do it more. And I'll say too, just on the, for my own personal on it, getting up every morning, I pretty much wait until I wake up in the morning to post something for it, right? And to find where I'm going to post. So I start my day off drinking coffee and scrolling through and just searching for like positive things, right? So it starts my day off just like in the right way. And then knowing that I'm giving that gift to others, knowing that maybe someone's even waiting, to see like, well, what's it going to be today? Is this one going to hit home? Like I could sure use a good one today, so just knowing that's really helped. So I started putting it out more and more. We ended up coming up with like a little, clothing line that just say, only good day shirts. I got it tattooed, on my,
I didn't even know
I got it tattooed on my hand. Just really start putting it out. We had like a fun festival at the gym a month back, and it was the Only Good Days festival. Probably gonna do that like once a year where we mixed just a lot of stuff I like. So we had like fights at the gym. We had like smoker fights there. We had grappling tournaments that day. We had wrestling matches. We had jiu-jitsu matches. We had sumo wrestling matches, which is something else I'm really into. Outside, we had vendors. We had food. We had bands come and play on stage. So we did a fireworks show at the end of the night.
Damn.
So it just really was like, man, let's just get together, have a good day, and like just the Only Good Days festival. And it seems to resonate with people. I mean, who wouldn't be into that? Well, like, what is there about Only Good Days you don't like? You know what I'm saying? Like, if there's something that you have a problem with about that, like you need to look internally, probably on that.
Yeah, right.
Something wrong with you.
You need a good day.
Yeah, you need a good day. It's cool to have good days, right? It's good to be positive, to be happy, to just be in a good sense of mood all the time. Like that's good. And so if something does weigh you down a little bit, being able to quickly like flip that around and put it behind you and move forward and like look for the bright points. Like I think that's it might not be the key to life, but it's definitely one of them.
I couldn't agree more, because I didn't even know that whole story behind the whole thing. The reason why I wanted to ask about it is because it's affected my life. There have been times when I'm having a day where I shouldn't be, because I'm blessed beyond measure, but then I see something that you've posted about Only Good Days, and it completely changes my mindset. And that's what it is a mindset.
Well, and so that's kind of what I've learned, like I'm still learning, but something I'll say at this point, I feel like I've learned it, is everything is your mindset, right? Everything starts with your own thought. Like all reality, everything that it all starts with your own thought. So if you can learn to control that, which is why I say discipline is so important, right? Because if you can learn to control your thought, then you can control your reality. If you control your reality, you shouldn't be having bad days. Yeah. So just being able to, almost break out the matrix, man, and just manipulate reality, and I'm a firm believer that you can do that. I don't think it has to be necessarily religious, it's definitely a spiritual type thing, but it's non-denominational, like anyone can tap into this, and it doesn't go against anyone that you pray to or believe in or do, man. This is just saying, hey, like you control your own destiny, you control the energy around you, you control yourself most importantly. So if you're doing that, then, bring good things into your life.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what I think a really important thing about what you said was just like, yes, it's a mindset, something you can tap into, but I feel like with me, it just clicked one day. But it didn't click out of nowhere. It clicked out of like intentionally seeking a good day.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to want it, right?
Yeah.
It's not, some things happen by chance. One thing, I don't really believe in coincidence. I just don't believe in it. I think things happen for reasons, or things happen because that's just the way that they're going to unfold, right? So like you've got to want that, right? Again, it starts in your mind. You have to start off with the intention of like, this is what I want. I want good for and you have to believe that you deserve it too. I think that's important, right? You have to believe like I'm deserving of the blessings I'm receiving. You know, man, I feel guilty a lot about my life because I love it so much, right? I get up, man, I do what I want to do every day. Like, you know, from, like I said, seeing my family off in the morning to work and just, you know, getting them off to school. And then, you know, I go to my job, but I mean, I'm coaching the fight team 10 to 12 every morning. I love it. You know what I mean? It's like, I say this, man, if I had, you know, $10-15 million in the bank right now, my day-to-day life wouldn't change that much. You know, like that's how you know you're happy.
Right.
Like I'm sitting here with an old friend, man, in Vegas right now, you know, on a podcast. I'm here for the week. I'm going to be, you know, and experiencing all these things. I'm going to be at the UFC, PI, you know, Performance Institute. It's an awesome place. Going to be, you know, cornering fights at the Apex this weekend. You know, last Sunday I went on like a deep sea fishing trip with one of our boxing coaches and got like all these blessings come and you almost feel guilty about them, but you just have to realize like, man, I'm deserving of this. This is the life I'm asking for. This is what I'm creating. This is what I want. And then, you know, just sit back and continue to allow it to come.
Right. Everything that you said is incredible. And I think that I concur with you. Being able to receive it, you can only receive it if you feel like you're worthy of it. And that the continued blessings is because you're doing good with it as well. You know, like a lot of times I wake up and I'm like, like I'm happy all the time. And it's because I get to do what I want every day.
Yeah.
But you have good intention, you know what I mean? Like, I believe that that's really, really important too. That like, you know, there's people can be like, do whatever they want and then, but be selfish about it. But you're pouring into others and you're receiving these blessings because not only are you allowing them to come, but you're sharing them with others.
Well, I'm a big believer in not just like your own positivity, right? But and your own like energy and aura. But I'm a huge believer in like the energy that comes in groups, right? And like in numbers. And I mean, I think this is the reason why churches and different synagogues and mosques, I think that's the reason these things work, is because you have a group of people there thinking and believing and wanting the same things, right? And that's kind of what like we do as a coach, you know, with our team, is we share goals. And if we share goals, then we double the energy going into it, you know? And everyone that has that common goal, like we're all like building and sharing in this together. And it just gets stronger and intensifies, you know? So I think there is a lot to the power of, you know, prayer, meditation, just that intent, right? And if the intent is positive, then you're going to get good results. If it's negative intent, man, I guarantee if you want negativity and talk, I guarantee you'll have bad things will come.
Yeah, for sure.
I can promise you that, you know? So, yeah, I think that has something to do with it too, is being able to like share dreams with others and having, you know, getting that group together that you share in some of the same things. And if you're doing that, then it's only going to like intensify the manifestation.
Right. It's multiplied because there's more energy in the room. The more energy in the room exponentially just becomes greater and greater and greater until it's an unstoppable
I'm not
force.
like a science guy, but I like to claim a lot of this stuff is like it's science, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it is. I think that is science. They'll tell you like, yeah, energy doesn't go, right? It just transfers, and if it's not leaving you, it's just staying there and it's just building and it's just kind of like shifting from one to another, and yeah, like you get the results of it.
I mean, I think it's science.
It's got to be.
It's something.
It's got to be.
That's hilarious. So I kind of want to backtrack a little bit and just like talk about like overcoming the illness. Whatever came of that? Because obviously you're healthy and good to go now.
So, man, they never really figured out what was wrong. The VA did a whole lot of different research and things. And in the end, they just chalk it up and said it's Crohn's disease. I don't really have a lot of the symptoms that everyone else with Crohn's disease has, though, like especially on a day-to-day basis, you know. But they put me on a medication for it that I have to take, and I'm big time like anti-medicine unless you need it. And I was sick dying, so if they tell me I need this, then then I'll take that. But man, it was just really crazy. My body stopped absorbing nutrients from food, so I could eat things and eat it healthy, but I wasn't getting anything out of it. And that was also leading to not just me being like lethargic, but like rapid weight loss. And I'm talking like 40 pounds in less than 2 months.
Damn.
So I went from, like,
that's scary.
I went from like 170 to like the mid 130s, like 134, 135, which is crazy because my fight weight was 145 and I had to cut like 15 pounds to get there. So to see myself just withering to that, I became anemic. I had like yellow, like jaundice type skin. I started getting something they call reactive arthritis, where my fingers and toes were extremely painful and swollen and wouldn't move. And then I developed the thing that I'm too stubborn to go. So I was just like dying upstairs at my house. I was on the couch, I was like pissing into a bottle. I couldn't get up. It was really bad. And then this infection came on my foot, and my foot swole up, and it was just so painful that eventually that's what took me to the hospital, and that's what got me admitted to the hospital. And I was there for like a week. They did surgery on the foot. Luckily, the infection didn't get as far like into the bone as they thought it might have, so they didn't have to amputate it. But then after that, the VA, let's just say they've checked me out good. They came in me from the backside, and they checked me. I've had several like colonoscopies now over that, and they never really could figure out that. So I looked more just on my own, just online type research, and there's a pretty good amount of veterans who are in the same kind of parts of Iraq at the same time frame that are having a lot of the same issues. And I'm sure it'll be one of those things that, kind of like the Vietnam vets with Agent Orange. It's something that once enough of us die from it, they'll probably come clean and say, yeah, we knew about this and here's what it was.
Yeah.
But all the vaccinations and things that they gave us, that's why I'm a pretty big like anti-vaccine if you don't know what they're putting into you.
Yeah.
I've had the anthrax vaccines. I've had the smallpox vaccines. I've had all these things that now they're like, we're not giving those to people because bad things happen when we do. So between those, we my unit was also, we were like the first unit into Iraq. So we were exposed to a lot of things that even things they say weren't there. We were exposed to these chemicals and whatnot. And, they got a lot of us sick while we were there. And then a lot of people sick since we've been home. I've had more than I would, like to count, friends that have died of strange illnesses, everything from cancers to heart attacks, seizures, strange things that they didn't have before we went there. And, being 40 to 45-year-old, that's not really that old when you start looking at those things. And if you look at the health I was in when I initially got sick, man, I was in a pinnacle of health. I had actually fought my last fight about 4 months before that. I was in arguably the greatest shape of my life when I got sick. So it wasn't that, So, man, I don't know. I'm pretty healthy now, but it's something I have to monitor. I need to definitely like keep my stress levels down. A lot of things can be stress. Stress can bring on a lot.
Yeah.
And then diet. I've always had a pretty clean diet. I'd say the last decade or more, just because of fighting. I've cleaned it up even more than that. I'm not like completely like gluten free, but I watch those things pretty regularly. I don't eat a lot of acidic things, stuff with tomato and stuff. Certain things are just, I know that those can be what triggers me to start getting sick. I've gotten sick one time since the first time I was sick with it, and I was able to kind of self-medicate with herbs and different natural remedies that I'd been turned on to before. Everything from, turmeric and ginger and ashwagandha to I've had several, probably like 5 or 6 different combo treatments. I don't know if you're familiar with combo, but it's like frog venom. It's like a shamanic practice, right?
Is that like the frog that Tyson talks about?
Well, so that's a different one.
Okay.
So this one doesn't cause you to hallucinate. This one causes more of like almost like an anaphylactic type effects. Everything closes up. You start to kind of feel like you basically feel like you're dying, and then you kind of come back to life on it, right? You don't see things, so it's not like a drug you want to do to like, whoa, man.
Yeah.
Definitely not. It's definitely not that experience. I mean, it's gonna purge you, right? You're gonna sweat like crazy. You're gonna puke out all kinds of vile. It's just your body's gonna purge, but it kind of hits a reset on your immune system. So just that mixed with some of the other things, I was doing, and then just trying to like de-stress, pull myself out when I feel my body's gotten too tired now. I let it rest. If I feel my mind is too tired now, I let it rest, because I know, like, I just know the importance of like that self-care.
Right. And I think that's something that we neglect too often, is just like that stress, the mental stress and the physical stress, like the 24/7 on, right? So important to be able to pull back.
I had really neglected it up until to the point when I stopped neglecting it, know? I almost looked at it, not to say it was a weakness, but, I was kind of like, I was proud of the fact that, like, I don't take days off. I don't sleep. I don't, like, I can handle anything. And, man, that's just a recipe for disaster. Eventually it catches up to you, and you gotta be able to take that step back. And
I was gonna mention, because I knew that you guys were like the very first people in Iraq. Do you think that type of stress, just like in memory or anything like that, could have something to do with that?
I never really even thought about that. I never considered it. The more I've learned, I think that you definitely can like harbor some of those stress. They can stay dormant, and they can come back out. So you have to revisit them maybe at different times in your life. I know that happens with, can happen like with some of the mental things. A lot of people who suffer from like a PTSD or something, they don't necessarily suffer it every single day, right? It could be dormant for years, and they come out. Eventually, you have to process it, and that's not something you can do on your time. That's something that's when your brain is ready for that, it has to do it. So, yeah, maybe there definitely could be even something like this that almost remained dormant, like inside the body, that now is like flaring up and starting to, starting to make us sick, man. Yeah, I don't know. That's something I should look into a little bit more.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, thinking back to those times, like, when did you go into the Marines? Was it 99 or 2000?
I went into the Marines on Halloween of 99.
Okay.
So Halloween night is when I like left Houston and went there to San Diego.
Right. So
I was in boot camp 2000, like when the new millennium came.
Yeah.
And I was in the fleet. I was in the Fleet Marines already during 9/11 when that happened. We watched that from my room in the barracks. And, I remember that day just being, I'm Marine Corps infantry. So, you're going to be first of the first on something like that, and you're watching these things unfold. And it's a very surreal thing it's to be in that position in the military when something like that happens. We all just sat in my room and watched it that morning. I think we went out for a formation, went straight back in, started watching the stuff, happen on TV. And then before the day was over, we were already being issued our desert camis. We had already been down to NBC, and we were checking and fixing our gas mask and all of that stuff and making sure everything worked. And, we were on alert. We were about to leave. And so all of a sudden things got like very real, like in an instant. I had just recently come back from a fun deployment to Okinawa. So I was in Japan for a little while. we went on floats. I visited Australia, Guam. I mean, the Marines we were just having a good time, and then not to say that the war wasn't a great time too, but it was just a different type of fun.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And man, it's almost like when you watch a movie nowadays that's about a war and you see the characters watch what's happening and then the realization of like how life is going to change for them.
Man, here's a straight real example on that. It was like a made for TV military documentary. They've done several of them on my unit, and a couple, like I've been featured on this and that in them, some video footage and whatnot. But there's this one, it's called Military Miracles, and they were showing a scene that was they did like a computer like re-animation of it, and they're showing the kill radius of this mortar that landed, and I'm like, I mean, that's me. There's my little animation of me standing there, and like, you realize like, man, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm well within this kill zone, so then like, yeah, it's like watching something on TV can make it very much real, and you almost like revisit and relive it.
Right,
You go through it and you kind of revisit that whole thing. When I saw that, I was just like, and I remember like my wife was there, my parents were, we were like watching this thing, and they were just like, I turn around, like looking, the whole room is just, looking at me like, oh my God, like I knew you did certain things, but when they're watching it on TV, like like in a movie someone made about it, they're like,
whoa,
yeah, so that's kind of crazy, but yeah,
it's like you lived the movie, and that kid that went into the Marines in Halloween of '99. And now the man that you are, living your life that you love every single day, having only good days.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that he envisioned?
No. I didn't even envision it or start kind of putting it together until a few years ago. When I first got turned on to David Goggins, right? Mm-hmm. Several years back, really kind of before he really like blew up and became, before he wrote the books and all that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said that really was eye-opening to me was that when you see, and he was referring to, I think, like to Navy SEALs and everything at the time, he said, people see this fully formed version of a badass, and they think that's what they were created, or they're born that way. He's like, they're not. You're seeing the fully formed version. You're not seeing all the things that built that man or built that person, And I was like, man, I'm not done. I can continue, to build, because I'm not fully formed yet. I think I was maybe like 35 at the time I heard this. I'm like, I'm not done. I'm not fully formed. That changed the way I started training. That changed the way I started approaching fighting, approaching life. I started winning a lot more fights. I started training a lot more hard. I really made some changes just off of him saying that and hearing it. I was like, man, like, yeah, that's that person back then, that's just a part of me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it needs to keep growing, you need to keep building, and like, you can become like if you want to become like the baddest motherfucker ever, man, you got to keep putting in that work to get that, Right. I'm not sitting here trying to hype myself up and say like, I'm going to be the baddest motherfucker ever. That's not even in my goals, right?
You're the baddest you ever, though.
But that should be your goal, right? To be the best, baddest version of yourself you can be, and leave a legacy. Right? When I want to be something that generationally my family looks back and talks about. Right? I'm not even talking about my kids or my grandkids. I want my great. I want me to be long gone when they look back at maybe the championship belts and things I've won, some of my medals and things that I earned in the military. Like I received medals for valor and combat, and those things, they mean a deal to me. But I'm excited to just knowing that, like, man, maybe, 75 years from now, they're going to impact someone down my bloodline who's going to look back and be like,
use it as motivation.
That's the motherfucker there I wanted to be, right? Like, my great-great-grandfather was a bad motherfucker. Because we all wish we could say, like, I don't really know that much about, I know about my family, but I don't really know how my great-great-great-grandfather was.
Right.
It'd be nice to think he was some badass who was out doing badass shit though. So, it'd be nice to have like some of those trophies and medals they can, they can touch and be like, yeah.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man. And you're leaving a legacy along the way because, I mean, you're for sure going to be remembered in that way. And one thing that I really like is that your daughters are now wrestling. Pretty little girls out there just whooping butt wrestling.
And they absolutely hate it, but they're good. That's the fun, man. They hate doing it, but they're good at it. But especially my oldest, man, she don't like it, but she loves to win.
Yeah.
She loves to compete. I remember putting her in jiu-jitsu tournaments when she was little, and she'd have to go against these boys and stuff, and she wouldn't want to do it. And so she would get in there and then she would beat them, and she loved that, and the same with wrestling. And, my youngest, I've been on her, like, she's done martial arts her whole life and she doesn't want to compete. Tomorrow she has tryouts for volleyball in middle school. She's going into 7th grade. Yesterday was like her first day of school. So we've been working, for like, it was the first thing that she said, Dad, I'm going to try out for this team and I'm going to do it. So we've been putting in the work to make sure she gets it. So I'm very confident she's going to make this team.
That's awesome.
And, it's going to be cool to see her kind of have that same like competitive drive, because I haven't really seen it in her, but I know it's got to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes they just like, it's the same prototype of work ethic, but just applied to like a different avenue.
Well, my oldest especially, man, definitely I'd say both my daughters grew up in the gym,
Mm-hmm.
but one thing that they've seen is they've seen guys come in and, I bet you my oldest one even remembers you with this, right? They remember seeing people come in, work their ass off every day, and then go out and become a champion. And so they just know if you want something, you just got to work and get it, right? And if you don't achieve it, you just didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
They believe that and they know it. So like everything that they've ever like really set out for, they've got, because they've worked for it. And the things that maybe didn't pan out for them, when they took that reflection and look back, they're like, you know what, Dad, I should have tried harder. I should have done this, because they know, like, man, I just didn't, like, it's in the preparation,
Right.
So like they've seen the work ethic and how it works out for you. And they know that's the recipe, the formula for like success. Champion is
right.
You just got to work.
Yeah, and putting in the work. And I mean, even sometimes though, when you put in all the work and you think you've done everything right and there's nothing else, you've crossed every T, you've dotted every I, sometimes it just doesn't work out in your favor. And that's part of the lesson along the way too, because what happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't.
Yeah, man, you learn from it, right?
Yep.
And if you don't, again, that goes with the OGD. You don't want to lose, and you don't want things to not go in your favor. But if it must happen, like, I need to learn from it, right? I can't let this experience not be something I'm like learning from or going to improve upon.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are we at on right now? Cool. So I think we've been going for an hour already, or 57 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to wrap it up. Continuing to work, continuing to learn. You live it, you lead it through your gym, your team, your family, your daughters. I think anyone who listened to this today, I can't wait to go through it and just find just like so many just like gems that you dropped over the last hour. I wish we had 2 hours. I'd sit here and talk to you all evening. But thank you so much for being here, man. Thank you for sharing everything that you've shared today. And thank you for just bringing and providing so much value within my show. I'm so happy that we were able to connect here and do this today.
It's a cool experience, man. Especially, like, I just feel like we're just catching up. We literally haven't seen each other in 10 years.
Yeah.
I saw you 5 minutes before we got on air here, so we really didn't even talk. So this was really just like our chance to catch up, man. I'm super grateful for it too, dude.
Hell yeah, man. And you'll be in town all week, so we'll have to catch lunch again before you leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, I come out here, several times a year. So man, maybe we can do this again.
Yeah, bros. We'll see how that hip's doing. We can go get some runs in. Yeah. I'm down to train too. Nice and soft.
Yeah, I just don't want to get hit again.
Yeah, I don't want to get hit either. Yeah, I don't need to be getting that back for sure. Cool. Thanks again. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you guys all for tuning in. Again, please do me a favor. If you love this show, if you got something out of it, if you like it, subscribe to my YouTube. Like, comment, share with someone that you know could benefit from this conversation. Again, we'll be back here every Tuesday for the forthcoming future. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week.